Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment.
Leigh and I are visited today once again by Carl Gray.
We have the distinct honor of having Carl Gray back with us.
Some of you may recall, Carl was one of our earlier guests back in March of 2024, episode 6. And we're very delighted to have him back. Thanks, Carl.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure. Love to get together with you guys.
We're really honored that you came to see us again. Would you go ahead and tell us what it's like working? Well, you work for USCCA, is that correct? Or is it Delta Defense?
So technically, yeah, it's Delta Defense. We're the service provider to the USCCA, United States Concealed Carry Association.
And USCCA, for those that aren't aware, is?
It's a education training organization, and there's also a self-defense liability insurance policy that goes along with it to make sure you're protected in the aftermath of a self-defense incident.
So anybody that listened to the first episode was featuring Carl was probably aware of that. But a lot has changed with the USCCA in these 2 to 2.5 years. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Being a member has additional benefits, or there's additional coverage. Am I stating that correctly?
Correct. Yeah. Things have gone up quite a bit. I don't even remember how much the coverage was because it's been so long, but it was substantial. I believe cost of bail expense back then used to be, I believe it was $1.5 million. Now it's $2.5 million. So if you had an incident, they come up with up to $250,000, which is massive. As long in top of that, in the event that you're sued and they award damages, it's $2 million now. I believe it was $1 million back when we spoke then.
That's significant.
Oh, it's massive.
Yeah.
And then along with that, firearm restraining orders. If you get hit with one of those, that can be horrific. There's $15,000 for that and $5,000 for expungements now. And it's kind of interesting, in my background before this, I'm a retired police officer, spent 27 years in law enforcement. I was a detective for a good portion of it. And what I could tell you is there's a lot of times that firearm restraining orders are just orders of protection. They're used and they save people's lives. Mm-hmm. But then there's times that they're just used in a vindictive manner.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Where somebody just sets somebody up, and I've seen that on more than one occasion. So having that benefit in your back pocket is massive.
That's something that there's been a lot of pushback. They usually refer to them as like red flag laws, right? Where you just call up and petition a warning against somebody. But now you being a member of USCCA will help a member combat that. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes. So basically, if you had to go to court and fight that, this would provide you $15,000 in legal defense.
I gotcha.
For
Okay.
that.
So it's for legal expenses once again.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. And that could be beneficial because, as we all know, legal costs can accumulate very quickly. It doesn't take much.
Absolutely. And like I said, especially if it's put on there falsely, I've seen that, again, on more than one occasion, and that can be devastating to people.
No offense to lawyers out there, but I don't think it's uncommon for lawyers to try to paint their opponents as looking more nefarious than they are. And I wouldn't be surprised that some attorneys suggest that clients go after
Absolutely.
an ex or somebody and say,
If they think there's a reason,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a contentious battle for whether it be kids or property or funds, then maybe that's a tool that an attorney would choose to employ.
True, and everybody has a right to a defense. And speaking along those lines, there was a case where it was a female sergeant that I worked with. She was on her way into work, and she was stopped at the light, and she sees somebody in front of her. It's a girl, probably in her 20s, and she sees this girl striking herself and yanking hair out, and she was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" So the arrow turns green. She makes the left, and this off-duty sergeant who's on her way to work, she was getting ready to call the police and say, "Hey, something's going on." She's in her personal car at the time. So this young lady is driving right up to the police station.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, so this retired sergeant is like, "Oh my God, is this happening?" So she goes in. She goes in the back door, and she's listening. And sure enough, this girl goes right up to the front desk. Yeah, my boyfriend just attacked me. She's like, "Arrest her right now."
Claiming to be a victim.
Yeah.
Filing a false report like that.
And not disparaging domestic battery. It happens all the time. And
Absolutely.
yes.
But,
Yeah. Good point.
But there are some times where it's just falsified, and it's scary.
Yeah, it absolutely can be. And to face that all alone, if you can't afford an attorney would probably be even that much scarier.
And I should say that one wasn't a firearm restraining order, but just, making the point of how quickly somebody could, falsify a police report and go in front of a judge.
Yeah, using the law as a weapon, so to speak.
That's probably a good way to put
That
it.
vindictive
Yeah.
manner.
Yeah.
And in these past 2 years since we last had you on, I've gone to some of the USCCA seminars, and I find them very informative. I think all the ones I've been to have been related to, I believe they call after a shoot or something along those lines, on kind of to prepare people to, or how to navigate if they find themselves in a situation where they do have to use their firearm in self-defense. And I think I've been to 3 of them. And I keep going because even the second one I went to, I learned something that I didn't learn at the first one. And then the third one I went to, I learned something that I didn't learn at the first 2. And I don't think that a person could ever be too educated or too well informed. And on top of that, I always meet some really great people at these events. So that's really nice. But one of the things I also picked up on, which I'm very, very favorable of, is that USCCA really focuses on the training aspect of being a firearm owner and possibly carrier of a firearm. Can you tell us a little bit about the focus that they have on that and the variety of it?
Sure, absolutely. And we'll hit on some of the new things that they're doing too, but I'll give some credit to one of the other account executives I work with, Dominic Catanella. He puts it like this. He said, you should look at this as the USCCA is a 3-legged stool, right? One of those legs is education, one of those legs is training, and then the other part is that self-defense liability. And each one of those legs holds a certain amount of weight, equal amount of weight under that stool. And if you're missing one of those legs, everything collapses. You can own a gun all day long, but if you don't know what to do with it or when you can and can't shoot, how quickly you can end up in jail or
It's valid.
hurt the wrong person, place, or thing. So that's kind of how all that works together. Now, USCCA, when it first started, was just training and education. Everybody thinks of it as just the insurance. The insurance actually came last.
Wow.
It started
I didn't
out.
know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it started out just as Concealed Carry Magazine. Tips and tricks and information for tricks probably sounds bad when we're talking about something like that.
Ideas.
Ideas. There we go. Right. Different ideas for concealed carry holders and gear, but it evolved from there. For a long time, everything that we did was, as far as education and training, it was just classroom, right? We were in there, we'd talk about stuff, we would bring people in and go over, okay, this is what happens in a use of force situation, this is how we could better prepare our house. But in the past probably year, we got into a lot more hands-on training as far as that we could bring people into, where they're not necessarily on the range, but they're building skills. I'm guessing both of you are familiar with CERT pistols?
A little bit, not deeply
So,
knowledgeable.
for everybody who's not familiar with it, I believe the creator was a gentleman named Mike Hughes, and it stands for Shot Indicating Resetting Trigger. And for basic description purposes, it's a mock gun, right? And it shoots 2 lasers. And the lasers are pretty much diagnostic tools to see how people are handling it. And the trigger pretty much works just like a trigger as, say, a regular firearm would. So they're great training tools, but they don't replicate recoil. It's the only thing they can't do.
Sure.
So we could work with people on grip, stance, side alignment, trigger press, resetting the trigger, prepping the trigger, position stool, all these different things, moving around with a firearm, proper draw. So we incorporated the CERT pistol so we could do all these classes where we're actually doing hands-on stuff, where we're getting people moving around. So when we started these classes, the first one had a lot of information in it. It was almost overload. And so we noticed people were taking all this training out of it, but they were almost walking out like it was just way too much crammed in a short amount of time. So some of the account executives started trimming it up, and now it's kind of broken down into 3 classes. So you come in 3 different sessions. We would see people come in, renewal students, when we would ask everybody, hey, what's your experience level? A lot of people would say, hey, I've been carrying for 5 years or 10 years, and then we would ask, well, how many of you ever actually practiced drawing from concealment? And it's hardly ever anybody. On top of that, when
We know why, though, right? I mean, at most places where people would continue to go train, it's generally prohibited.
You can't, right? And then the other thing on top of it too, people are smart enough to know that, hey, I have an appendix carry. I've never actually tried this on a live range. Nobody ever told them that they should practice, just dry firing, drawing from concealment, moving those garments out of the way and getting on target. So it's pretty much like a recipe for disaster. And we've talked before.
Sure.
The state of Illinois really doesn't prepare you for that.
Correct.
I don't know why that's not part of the curriculum and encouraging people to practice with that. So as we introduce those classes, myself, some of the other account executives here in Illinois and across the country, we're noticing that was an issue. So really that first one, even with renewal students, I'm just concentrating on grip. I'm showing them how to hold the gun, how to get it up, that natural point of aim. This is how you should be gripping it. And that makes so much of a difference for so many of these people.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest, the first time I did it, when there were all these renewal students in there, I was like, I really need to water this down, but I don't know if anybody here is going to be offended that I'm like, hey, I'm showing you how to hold a gun. I'm showing you how to press that trigger. And I was waiting for like some really bad reviews. And Carl, do you think we're idiots? But everybody was like, I took so much out of this. And sometimes that's where we need to just back it back down. Even with our, we could talk about this a little bit more, in the USCCA chapter that we have here in Illinois. I thought that so many members of the chapter who were carrying for a long time, pretty proficient in the use of their firearms, were going to be maybe a little offended if we watered it down. But they were like, no, let's start at the basics and work forward.
Yeah, I think that's never a bad idea to confirm that the fundamentals, the basics, are really well established, right? Like the foundation of a house. It doesn't matter how well you build. If the foundation sucks, the house is coming down. But that's something that Leigh and I have talked about at various times in the past, that so much training with carrying, in regards to carrying a firearm, so much training can be done in your living room.
Absolutely.
Or in your basement. You don't have to be at the range sending rounds down the range to train using tools, whether it's a Mantis or, so they have.
Or CERT, or
Right, any of that stuff.
or just a blue gun,
Right.
Absolutely.
or a safely
Right.
unloaded and cleared personal firearm.
But you can do it at your house, in your office, in your basement. But a lot of those basics can be worked on and practiced and, dare I say, mastered without even going to the range. But I don't think very many people do that.
And it's one of those things that's absolutely overlooked.
100%.
Even if we think just about dry firing, the amount of training you get done through dry firing, the police, military, competition shooters, all day long. There was a young guy, and I haven't talked to him in some years. His name was Lance Bratcher, out of Northwest Indiana. Did you ever see that? I thought maybe I showed you a video of him way back. He would train with airsoft pistols constantly. Mm-hmm. He would go through hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition a year. His dad reloaded, which helps.
That helps,
right? If you got somebody that can do that. But the kid was just amazing, and I couldn't tell you how many trigger presses he's doing, or drawing from the holster, and everything is mastered down to that. I mean, you don't need to get to world-class competition level, but if you could just be proficient in that draw stroke and getting it out.
It doesn't hurt to try and get that good. It's only going to help you. It's never going to hurt.
Very true.
Absolutely. Well, and the funny thing is that void where everybody's at. Again, I mentioned it before, but I see 800 to 1,000 people a year on the range for renewal classes. So many people, they will put their rounds in the magazine backwards. They put the magazine in backwards. You ask them to lock the slide to the rear, and they give you that funny look. Leigh, being a teacher, when the kids didn't study for a test.
I saw that look today.
You saw that look today. Today was the first day, right?
We were a couple days in,
Couple
but
of days,
still,
okay,
it didn't take long.
Yeah, that's not that good.
We
this
were
early
talking
in the
about
year.
some of the Blake stairs today.
Yeah, so
Well, it's a perishable skill, right?
Right.
So even if Illinois requires a 5-year renewal, for a lot of the people, they haven't really touched it very much since their first qualification. And so even if an instructor did do a diligent job, which not everybody does,
Right.
but even if they did, they could come in 5 years later and be close to square one, just because they haven't worked those processes into, close to automaticity.
Yeah.
So
there-
yeah, there's a lot of issues. This going back to USCCA, I think when I first started doing the concealed carry stuff, I looked at a lot of different organizations. I think they've proliferated since, but USCCA was certainly one of the early ones. And on the training branch, on that training leg of that stool, my assessment was that I saw a lot of different influencers in the self-defense, especially firearms category. And I came across a lot of information where I was like, oh my gosh, like that's scary that people are putting that out there.
Right.
And I've never had that with USCCA. And it was one of the reasons that caused me to reach out to USCCA as an instructor, was because when I did see training from the USCCA, it's not that I agreed with every single thing, but I never really disagreed vehemently with anything that the USCCA was putting out. And you couldn't say that for a lot of instructors. You can't say that for a lot of information that's out there on the internet. I always thought that the USCCA was very careful and precise with the self-defense information that they were putting out there. It just was top-notch in my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. And it's
true.
It's getting nothing but better. Like I said, we got Mike Sieklander now. He's the director of training, and he is amazing. I got to go through a 4-hour class with him that they had for some of the account executives, and nothing makes you feel more nervous walking into a class. Like, I've been carrying a firearm professionally and personally for since 1995. And then you're in a class with this guy, and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to look like an idiot,
For those of you who don't know, Mike Sieklander has written books on the subject of shooting, but not only that, he's a world-class shooter and an air marshal.
Right,
Everybody knows that the skill of the air marshal program.
Yeah, created the shooting qualification for the air marshals.
Yeah, so anytime you're like, you have to shoot in front of somebody like that, that's very intimidating.
I mean, it was.
But that's how we pressure test ourselves too, right? That just having that additional pressure of being in front of someone that you do feel like you want to impress, that's good training.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, it was he was just this fountain of information and was so accommodating to everybody, and just all these little, tips and clues that you pick off it in that amount of time.
Tell us about so Range 355 has can we go that direction?
Absolutely.
Since we're there, Range 355 has
pardon me, in Bowling, are they in Woodridge?
So they're in Bolingbrook.
That's a Bolingbrook address?
They're
Bolingbrook,
right on the
Illinois.
edge, but yeah, if you look it up, it'll say Bolingbrook.
Okay,
yeah.
Range 355, Bolingbrook, Illinois.
Yeah.
And they have a USCCA chapter, and you were telling us before the pod that this is one of the first of just a few in
Correct.
the United States.
So
and
it's
tell us about that and how people could get involved if they want to.
nice. So basically, yeah, it's a USCCA chapter. Right now, I believe there's 7 of these around the country. Range 355 was handpicked. They were one of the first 4 across the entire country. USCCA loves their facility. And basically, it was a way for us to get our members together. We didn't actually know what we were going to do when we first started it. They just said, hey, we want to start getting our members together. So basically, anybody who's a USCCA member is welcome to come out. We meet the last Tuesday of every month, 6 o'clock. We're actually, our next meeting, not sure what's the
5th, I said 26th.
25th of August, yeah, 6 o'clock. We're actually going to be doing our meeting that month where we're going to be planning the training for the rest of the year, depending on what we're doing. Sometimes it's first aid, sometimes it's less lethal devices. We shoot at a minimum of 4 times a year. We shoot the USCCA shooting qualifications. Are you guys really familiar with those?
No, I am not.
Oh, okay. No, so the funny thing is, we have so many members that have the option to go shoot those qualifications. A lot of them just don't take advantage of it. So, for instance, the state of Illinois qualification, we shoot at 5, 7, and 10. Mm-hmm. And you shoot at that massive boat sail target. With this, we're using the USCCA target. There's a circle in the center. We shoot at 3, 5, 7, 10, and 15. You're supposed to get 70% on it. We shoot 10 rounds at every distance, trying to get it in that circle. And there's basically where we're just concentrating on the fundamentals. Right? A lot of times when I do it, I'll draw like a little circle right in the middle of it and trying to focus people like, hey, I just want you to drive it right to there.
Sure.
So we work on the fundamentals with that. The next one, it's timed, but it's reloads and malfunctions. And so a lot of people come in and they think, hey, I'm just going to tear this up. It's going to be super easy. But when people haven't practiced it, again, that perishable skill, and maybe in their actual 16-hour class, they only did it for a few minutes.
Right.
So we work with people, and if you fail it 1 month, no problem. Come back and we'll work on, get there an hour early the next time. Ken Lance, the other instructor there, we're always there early, an hour early. So that's one of those things, we could just work with you, shoot it, and the range is amazingly accommodating. They give us the time, they give us the space. Steve Ruby there, the GM, he has been awesome to us. He gives us the space, lets us do everything we need to. And
That's been my experience there too, is that they've always been very accommodating to people who are in the shooting field, whether it's instructors or clubs and organizations. That's been
absolutely
a cool feature of that place.
Yeah, and they don't get mad when people shoot the ceilings either. We try to tamp that down.
I discourage that a little bit.
Right, but a lot of times when and I'm sure you've both seen it, is when people start shooting a little bit faster than their skills allow. That's when those rounds start going all over the place.
Get away from you a little bit.
Yeah, and that's where we try to inoculate them to a little bit of stress in those chapters. But like I said, the USCCA is planning to have hundreds of these across the country eventually. So the nice thing would be is, say you're a member here in Chicago and you're in Nevada and you want to go to one in Las Vegas, when you're on vacation, stop in.
And those are 6 o'clock meetups at 355
Yes.
on last Tuesday of the month?
Last Tuesday of every month. And then once you become a member, they actually set up a communication network for us. It's called the Mighty. And once you're a USCCA member and you become a member of the chapter, it's easy for everybody to communicate that way, which is kind of nice.
Very cool.
That's really great. But this all kind of comes back to USCCA starting off with a magazine and training as opposed to the insurance aspect of it. It really is like going back to or staying true to the roots.
Absolutely. We've kind of gotten that reputation. It's like, when I go into classes, it's like, well, here's the insurance guy. I'm like, no, I want you to do so much more than that, right? Because this insurance is going to do you no good if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know when you can shoot, if you, I don't want you carrying a gun if when you pull it out, you actually shoot yourself or one of your loved ones, right? We want to build those skills in you so you're proficient with it and you're not a detriment to yourself or
turn the gun over to the bad guy. That doesn't help anyone either.
Right. We actually we just did some training. We were trying to test this out, and I'm hoping USCCA does something with this. I work with an instructor out of Northwest Indiana. His name's John Pemberton, and he runs Spartan Dynamics out there. Did we ever talk about him? I think because
I'm familiar with Spartan, but there's been a few.
Yeah,
of those
not
around.
Spartan out here.
Okay.
I think I brought him up to you years ago because you and he kind of have the same mindset.
Okay.
Right? Like you teach combatives, you teach shooting, everything like that.
Yep.
Out in their range in Northwest Indiana, they teach jiu-jitsu in the basement, but they shoot upstairs.
Gotcha.
So they try to tie it all together, but he actually did a firearm retention class. We rolled out the mats and we put the yellow guns on people, and he was teaching people how to hold it. It was kind of funny because we had a pretty wide age range in there, and I remember there was one woman in her 70s, and she got aggressive. She's like, "You are not taking this from me." It's like, "Whoa, we gotta."
I always like seeing.
We gotta calm down a little bit. But that's more training that I think we're going to be getting into, because again, I think we've talked about this before. When people just start carrying a firearm, a lot of them think it's, hey, I have this talisman that's going to keep the bad guy away,
Right.
And that's not always the case.
No, and I would say that we probably all saw an influx of that with. It's been 5 years ago with a lot of the rioting. I think there was a lot of purchasing of firearms for the sense of security, and I'd be really curious to know first-time firearm owners from 2020 to 2025, how many of them have, or how many rounds have been put down the range with some of the newer people, because I know a few that they've literally been in the drawer since then.
Oh yeah, or they got into it late, and they all that was left was some crazy hunting pistol, or and they're like, well, I've got something. Well, it's
Probably would have been better off without anything with that one.
Yeah, we all remember those times, when the shelves were bare.
Yeah.
And I was in. Are you familiar with Ray O'Haron?
I am not.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So it's pretty much for law enforcement. You go there, get your uniforms. They sell the guns, and I was in there right at the tail end of that, and the shelves were bare. They had like 3 revolvers that were turn-ins. I'm like, oh, you got a nice selection. The guy got really mad at me. He's like, well, at least we got something. I'm like, man, I get it. I'm just kidding. You know?
Look, let me ask you this. The USCCA is now having, I'm going to call it maybe a new division or a new program with
Yes.
USCCA law, right? And before telling us about that, because I know next to nothing about it, I am curious with all of the training that is available to USCCA members, and I know a lot of it could even be logged and recorded.
Absolutely.
Does that benefit or behoove anyone if they find themselves in a situation in a courtroom? The fact that somebody can show a history of documented training, does that benefit them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The more training you can show that you did, the better off you are. It has to be documented. If you can't document it, you go into court, it didn't happen. Any lawyer will tell you that. The interesting thing is, I think the state of Illinois, and I'll back up for a second, we've talked about the right to carry versus the privilege or the law. You know, I think we would all prefer that it was just constitutional carry here.
Right, absolutely.
Right. The
Should
problem
be
is-
everywhere.
So here's where we could actually sidetrack for a second. You know, if you go to Indiana where it's constitutional carry, my best friend growing up, he's lived out there forever, carries all the time. But when I talk to him about, do you actually know when you can and can't shoot? And I throw questions at him, he seems kind of out of it. And I'm like, listen, you have to go to a seminar. You have to you have to put a little bit of effort into this as opposed to just like, hey, I've got this and I'm comfortable. And that's one of those things. If you have an incident and you can't show any training, you're going to look negligent. You're going to look like you didn't know what you were doing. That training, I don't want to say will always defeat it, but it's going to show that you went to much greater efforts than somebody who just, hey, I got this, for every 5 years I go do to my 3 hours minimum.
Right.
Because here's the thing, in 2, even with the shooting qualifications, if you go 5 years and you have an incident and you hit the wrong person, place, or thing, and you can't show that you did a qualification in the last 5 years, you're going to have some problems.
Proving that you're making a concerted effort to be responsible, I would think carries a certain amount of weight.
Absolutely. And if you look at it, say, you were both on a jury, you heard 2 cases. Both of them where somebody hit the wrong person. One of them had 0 training. Another person was able to show, over the last 5 years, I've got 40 hours. Who are you going to look more favorably upon?
The guy that tried, put in the effort.
And the biggest payoff is that, hopefully that what really happened with your training is that you made better decisions and had better skill.
Correct.
And then you don't wind up in the situation in the first place.
Either you weren't.
So we're sort of talking about the tail end of problems, but people really don't think about it, Carl. Like people always, they think about, they have a timeline for self-defense, and their timeline sort of begins just before the violent event happens. And then, their firearm seems to be what they're thinking about in the moment of the violent event.
Right.
And then there's no thought about like what happens after the violent event.
Well,
Absolutely.
And I would say what a lot of people probably don't consider, and it's something that you and I have talked about extensively, not so much on the podcast much recently, but not being on that X in the first place. If you're trained well enough to not even be in that situation, it's not always up to you, right? It's there's only so much a person can do. But if you're not on the X, if you're not in that situation because of training that you've learned in terms of situational awareness, things of that nature, you don't even end up in a courtroom. Because it never even, a self-defense shooting never even occurs.
Absolutely.
So in some of the various training models, USCCA, I'm sure some of it is about situational awareness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And being aware of your surroundings and who's around you, and a lot of what not to do.
So it's interesting, and Leigh, we've talked about this before, the book, The Gift of Fear.
Yes.
Yeah. So Rob Chadwick, who was the former head of training for the USCCA, he's currently still with the USCCA, but Mike Sieglander's taking that over. He would stress that book all the time to literally anybody who would listen. And I had read it well before I had met him, but pay attention to those signals, pay attention to those clues, those patterns that are off, and so many people ignore it to their own detriment.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest learns that I had delving into the whole personal protection realm was, how much we would probably deny a lot of the factors a lot of the signs that we would actually put ourselves at higher risk because, you either don't want to be embarrassed or you don't want to offend someone. The list goes on and on. But yeah, unless you expose yourself to some of that information, and Gavin DeBecker's, a genius, and the book reads it. It's one of those books I sound like it reads itself, right? Like you pick it up and you just keep going because it's really well written, very, very interesting subject matter. So yeah.
It's it's funny. One of the things they talk about in there is people when that incident happens, they don't realize it's happening to them because their brain can't process it. And I saw that firsthand in somebody's face where their brain wasn't processing. We'll sidetrack here for a second. I'll just tell you this quick story. So I never leave the country. I don't go in the ocean because I don't want to get eaten by a shark. Right? I pretty much go to Wisconsin on vacation. So my soon-to-be brother-in-law, my sister and my soon-to-be brother-in-law, they travel all over the world. They're scuba divers. They don't have kids. So they have a pretty good life, right? Yeah. So he had reached out to me, and he's like, hey, I'm going to propose to your sister on this small island. I forget, it was Eleuthera. I didn't even know where the hell it was, right? So he's like, hey, I want you guys, I want you to come out, and I want you to surprise her. So I get out there with my wife to Eleuthera, and we're on the same plane flying into this island that's this jet that has like maybe 60 people on it. I had to squeak past her with the sunglasses and the hat, right? So we're at this island that doesn't even have an air traffic control tower, and we get there. I'm right behind her in line. She has no idea that I'm there, and we walk out in the parking lot. I'm sorry, this is a long way to go for a short for a short payoff, but I run up behind her, and I'm like, hey, can I help you with your bag? And she knows I don't leave the country. I don't go anywhere. I don't even have a passport that she knew about to this point. And her face was like distorted, like almost like, and you could see her trying to process it. And I was like, this is the look people have when they can't believe this is happening. And it was all like I was watching her trying to figure it out. She looked a little dumb, I'll be honest. But that's that look that people have when they can't process. There's just too much information. This can't be happening to me. This doesn't happen, and that's where that fight, flight, or freeze comes in. And we have to be able to accept all those things that were wrong. And the funny thing was, she's like, I thought I saw you at the airport. I thought I saw you on the plane, but there was no way that was you. And I'm like, this is boom, exactly what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Yeah, it really is. Absolutely.
I'll never travel to another country to prove it again.
Yeah,
That was it.
Yeah, that was it.
But it worked.
Yeah.
If you're going to surprise anybody, it's going to have to happen.
Yeah, that was my
Great scene.
Yeah, that was my scene. At the cheese stop in Sheboygan or something, right? Aha.
Yeah. But Carl, speaking of training, you were nice enough to bring Leigh and myself a package here. Could you tell us about this?
Oh, Beyond the Target.
Yes.
Yeah, that's that came from almost being shot by plenty of renewal students. So.
Now we have to hear
Carl
about
said
it.
I have to do something here.
Right. People just don't get it.
800 students a year.
Yeah.
500 almost shoot me. I'm going to make these cards.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because in Leigh you're on the range with them all the time. But what I will say is about your students, they come back and they train. They're almost like family with you. I've seen that. So your students are a lot more.
They're also
well-trained.
very few.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Not 800.
Yeah. And that just with the volume of people I see, because I enjoy getting on the range. So when I work with different partners, I'm like, hey, let me come help you with the renewal. And we'll see so many people come in. They never had the skills in the first place. They're kind of dropping the ball. Like we said before, the gun handling is poor. They'll readjust their grip 6 or 7 times. We shoot at those 3 distances that should be super easy, right? If you do everything right, you're going to hit those rounds. Mm-hmm. We actually started doing something new. Instead of starting at the 5-yard, we started at the 10. Like, hey, there's no warm-up.
Yeah.
And we'll work back. But we were seeing in all these classes is that these renewal classes that people would get that 21 out of 30, and they're like, hey, I passed, I got it. I'm like, no, you were looking at it this exactly wrong, right? This is
You missed 9 times.
right.
That's actually a minimum standard.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I say. Is, state of Illinois, while they're they're doing things I don't like, they're setting you up for failure because they're letting you walk out of here with this. Hey, I met this minimum standard, and I have this warm fuzzy feeling that I passed. And we may have used this analogy last time, but I tell people all the time, if you took your driving test and you cream 9 people, would the state of Illinois give you a driver's license?
Right.
Absolutely not, right? So why do you think
Definitely
you could miss 9 times? And nothing I would say would get through to people. I started writing names next to the misses. Like, yeah, this is Billy, this is Tom.
That's brilliant. Yep.
You know, and they started getting a little bit. And so that's when I came up with the idea for this training tool. It's called Beyond the Target.
Beyond the Target. Yep. Firearms training tool. Deck of cards.
Yeah, and basically it's off one of the universal safety rules. You know your target and what's beyond it. And here's the funny thing, Leigh and Joe, you've been on the range God knows how many times, and we've all like heard that regurgitated, those universal safety rules. A lot of people think it's just the range. It's like, no, that's real life. That's everywhere, and people just weren't getting it. So basically, what I did, I came up with this deck of cards. It's the same as any deck of cards, but on each one there's a consequence. Your face cards, your face cards, if you pulled one of those, it's telling you that you killed somebody. It's going to have a little narrative about who you killed with your stray round because you couldn't exercise judicious marksmanship under a little bit of stress.
And when do you pull a card?
So for basically when you run that qualification, for any miss you have, and I'll back this up, this is where we did a little figuring out afterwards. For any miss, you pull a card.
Gotcha.
So any one of those 30 rounds that's not on there. There's 2 more categories, actually 3. The second one is personal injury, which should distinct possibility.
Sure.
You know, it could be anywhere from a nick to you hit somebody's femoral artery and they save or they lose a limb. And the third one is property damage. The fourth one, we put a couple of jokers in there where it's basically, while you failed to exercise judicious marksmanship under stress, you didn't have anything of consequence. But the thing with that is when we first introduced it, I had the cards made, and I've never manufactured anything.
The cards are really nice.
Thanks.
Like, these aren't like they're going to hold up.
Yeah, we made
it's a
them out of
quality.
Yeah, for someone like
deck.
if you throw this like in your range bag, and you take it with you, and just sort of as a self check, these will be lasting for a long time.
Absolutely.
We had them.
You don't have to be
made out of
dainty with
PVC.
these.
Yeah, so if
Yeah,
you've got them on
super
the
nice.
range, you're outside, or so it's a pretty good tool for that. But one of the things that we screwed up when we made the directions was I had somebody. The first time we used them on the range with new students, some guy missed like 8 times. So I give him 8 cards, and he's like, "I'm never picking up a gun again." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay, let's just maybe we reeled it back in.
It is the fear too, right? Like you could train yourself into paralysis, right? We have a tendency in the self-defense field to look at all the things that can go wrong.
Sure.
And there are a lot of things that can go wrong. There is a balance, though, right?
With
And so,
that.
how did you square that?
So basically what we said was, from this point forward, we're not going to give anybody any more than 3 cards.
Okay.
And you could always use these cards in any different variation that you wanted to. However it was, some instructors they'll buy a deck, or just even people will say, especially somebody's teaching their kid that's new, like, hey, there's a massive responsibility that goes with it.
There really is.
I want you to take this card. This is the your big miss. Put that in your wallet. Keep that. And, think about that. Put it right next to your concealed carry card.
Yeah, especially if it prompts you to train more, it's a great training tool. If it prompts you to train less because you're embarrassed by your performance, then then obviously it's counterproductive. So that's the instructor's job, right? The instructor's job is to say, hey, like,
Know your students, know how to approach them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and so that's one of the things that we've noticed too is so many people come into these renewal classes. It's a little bit different than the cards, but so many people come into the renewal classes and they just want to get in and they want to get out.
They want to check the box.
Right, and not just because they want to be irresponsible, but what happened was they never felt comfortable in the first place. They had all the best intentions when they left. Hey, you know what? I'm going to come back to the range and I'm going to do this. But if they don't have that knowledge, if they don't have that skill set, they come back to the range all day long and miss stuff, right? When they start gripping that gun tighter and it's pushing off to the left or the right, or they're anticipating, and those rounds aren't going where they want, they just feel dejected and they're like, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. We actually just started doing something new at 355 for renewal classes, where if people feel that, hey, I let my skills lapse, we do one-on-one training for the hour. So basically, you could come in, we work with you for an hour, and you shoot that qualification at the end of it. After we went over grip and stance and sidearm, and hey, these are the things you should work on when you go home.
Reinforce the basics.
Yeah, so then, and we're seeing so many people that do that, they come back and they're shooting on a regular basis.
Great.
And it's so that works out nicely. And
Build a little bit of self-confidence and knowledge.
Right.
And then they feel better walking into that range on their own.
right,
I'm not sure if you know this, Carl. I don't know if you ever heard the story, but Leigh had given me and my wife our concealed carry class and our license. And what really our friendship started, because I'm going to say it was 3 or 4 months after I got my license, I was in a situation where I almost had to draw my firearm.
right.
And I didn't, fortunately. But I was in the middle of a subdivision. And when I came back to Leigh, I said, I almost had to draw my firearm. And the realization set in, being in the middle of a neighborhood, that once I squeeze that trigger, I own that bullet wherever it lands. My name, as it should be. That's a big responsibility. But I said, but if I'm going to do this, I want to do it the best I can. And Leigh's response, something along the lines of, hold on, let's back up. You almost had to draw your firearm. Tell me what happened. Because if you remember, it bounced around my head daily, multiple times a day for a long time, until him and I had a conversation, and he kind of reinforced that I didn't really do anything wrong there, but it was still not a great scenario that I kept running through my head. And again, if you're in the middle of a subdivision, houses all around, and you miss that target,
right. That bullet's going through, because
it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
It's going to stop at some point.
yeah, they're not making a lot of brick houses these days anymore,
Yeah.
especially in subdivision.
And-
That's
and-
gonna, yeah.
And the possibility exists that it went up high and landed in a field somewhere, but you don't know. 'Cause
Right.
There's also the chance it goes through a window somewhere, and somebody's watching television on the other side of that window. Oh, yeah.
Hit the cat.
Yeah, right. But
Hope
those
it's my neighbor's cat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
but those are the things.
Sorry, neighbor. Carl's neighbor, do not be afraid.
But those are the things to think about, and that's why doing the training is so important. And I mean, that was probably what 8-9 years ago.
yeah.
Something like that. No,
Doesn't feel like it should be that long, but
no, but probably.
probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys our age never want to admit that something's coming
No,
up in a decade,
no,
right?
Not this year. No, absolutely not.
My wife told me today, you know what's happening to you? I just celebrated her birthday. And she said, you know what's happening to you? You're becoming a crabby old man.
Crabby.
A curmudgeon.
yeah.
You're like, no, I'm not. Where's my Prevagen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but this is a great tool to get people to think about that, because it's too, I think it's not, maybe it is too easy. It's too easy to look at a target, a paper target that has a bullseye and then a bunch of numbers on it and go, I missed. And that's it. You check out, you move on to the next one, and maybe you hit 96 out of your 100 shots. But where did those other 4 go?
Where did they go?
If you were not in a range with a certified backstop to catch the bullets, where did those 4 end up? And this tool right there allows a trainer to get somebody to think about that, to stimulate that thought process. I like it a lot.
Thanks.
I do too.
We even for somebody who's new, that's something that they could just, hey, you know what? When I miss, I'll shuffle the deck and take it out for myself. Some of the renewal classes, we just started doing this. When people start the renewal process, we say, okay, listen, we're going to go out there and shoot the qualification. Today, for purposes of this, I want you to think about this as you're in a grocery store parking lot, you're getting attacked, and beyond that attacker is the front wall of a grocery store. And there's people walking around in there. And sometimes that works, and sometimes the students just have that blank look like your kids, in class on the face, like, hey, I just need to get through this. And they're just scared, right? You need to snap them out of it. But one of the other things, and all your listeners should take a look at this, especially if they're new to this, new to shooting, is when you go to an indoor range, look at the ceiling. I was looking at 355 the other day, and I snapped a picture, and I showed my daughter, who's finally starting to shoot, and we're loving it. We're having a great time. I'm like, all those little chips in that white paint, those are people who thought they could shoot.
Right.
Right? And there's no pressure here. Nobody's attacking them. There's no stress.
There's no time limit.
Right. And there's hundreds of thousands of dots, and then there's skid marks along the wall. Like, how does this,
Yeah. We got away from it a little bit, but will you tell us about the USCCA law division now? Like, what does every member now get covered through this, or what is
so you could always, so basically USCCA law, they have a bunch of attorneys that they work with right off the bat. All the 1,200 attorneys that we dealt with before, those are in there. You can also still use your own, but the nice thing about this now too is that when you call a critical response team, those crisis call takers right there, they work for that law firm. So there's that attorney-client privilege right off the bat.
From your initial phone call, Too.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is massive, which is really nice. All the attorneys in that network, they have a minimum.
Wait, say it just one more time to make sure. So when, as a USCCA member, you call the dreaded number.
Yeah, the critical response team.
Critical response team automatically attorney-client privilege because
Automatically,
they are part of
yes. Yes. Yeah, so
That's pretty doggone
yeah,
good.
because they work for the attorney, so that's massive.
Okay.
And then they will get you on the phone with your attorney immediately. I think our average response time around the country is 9 minutes.
Wow.
Everybody I talked to has been in Illinois who's had an incident, has been on the phone with them before their ambulance gets there.
That's pretty
which
good.
is massive. One of the other things that not a lot of people think about and is some of the other stuff that goes into that legal defense. Not just the attorneys. And here in Illinois, it's great because we've got Dave McDermott, and he's pretty much the tip of the spear. And you how many of his seminars have you gone to?
Well, we had him on as a guest, so
Yep.
that was turned out to be 2 episodes because we had to break it up. And then I've been to 3 of his seminar, maybe 4.
Yeah.
And like I said, I keep going because I learn at least one thing each time. So if besides meeting great people, if I take away one additional fact, I'm just that much better off.
Yeah, and Dave will not stop talking.
No, that's true.
I've been to 7 or 8 of his, and the same thing. Like, you always pick something new up every time.
You're going to get more than you paid for?
Oh yeah, there was one that we were at, and Dave, he doesn't have that traditional attorney look. He's
Absolutely, right.
He's got the hair and everything. There was an older instructor, very conservative, that I work with, and he's in his 70s. He was in his 70s, early 70s when I brought him. And he's like, hey, you're always talking about this Dave McDermott guy. He's like, I see he's got a seminar going. And I'm like, yeah, you want to go? So I pick him up, and we go. And, he's like, yeah, okay, I'm really looking forward to this. And Dave walks up, and he's got the hair and the Johnny Depp thing going. And this instructor, Terry, I could feel him, like, burning a hole through my head with his eyes. And I'm like, I'm just not even going to look at him, right? And then Dave started talking, and he was like, I'm really sorry I was staring at you so mad. And I'm like, no, that's cool.
Yeah, no, Dave's definitely a rock star. He knows his craft really, really well.
It's funny. There's another instructor I work with who's a sheriff, and he works in the courtrooms and stuff like that. And there was this judge, like, man, that McDermott, he just, it pisses me off. And he's going on and on. That, like, he gets under his skin. And he's like, well, Your Honor, if you had an incident, who would you use? Like, well, of course I'd use McDermott. Who else would I use,
Yeah, I think it's pretty widely known within this community, in this region, that he's the go-to.
He's the go-to. And then it's just some of the other things that we have there, and they're publicizing it on USCCA law. Like, one of our expert witnesses, people always knew that, some people knew that we had him, but Masad Ayub is one of our expert witnesses. He's actually on the site as somebody that they're going to bring in if you have an incident. Man, I cannot think of anybody.
Again, wrote books on the subject, maybe one of the first.
Oh, he's like the
authoritative
Godfather on
books
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, did I tell you, I went and I took one of his classes?
No.
Yeah, so it was.
Oh, yeah, wait, this is sounded familiar. Go ahead, I'll tell the story.
Yeah, I had been reading his stuff since I was a kid. I was, I didn't play football, but I was reading gun stuff. I always wanted to be a cop. And so I was reading his stuff forever, and I finally went and I took one of his classes, and I was up in Wisconsin. And you're gonna meet him there, but I'm in the bathroom, I'm standing at the urinal, and I look over, and there's Masad Ayub, and I was like, oh, wow, hey, it's great to meet you. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll wait till we're done to shake your hand. He's like, well, he's got that voice, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I would appreciate that,
Being a member of USCCA, it allows access to all of these resources and all these tools, right?
Absolutely. One of the other things that not a lot of people think about is that private investigator. That's covered. Matter of fact, the attorney who, I should say, the private investigator who's in-house for Dave McDermott, his name's Dave Gomez. Dave's a friend of mine. He's a retired undercover ATF agent. He's also a firearms instructor. When you have an incident, Dave's going to send him out. The first thing he's going to do the very next day is float a drone over it to capture the whole crime scene, everything that's there. Having been in law enforcement and court cases my whole life, I could tell you this: there's a lot of time where witnesses don't want to be found. The resources that you have that you're going to, through USCCA law, where they could send somebody like Dave out who's going to pound the pavement for, 50 or 100 hours, to find whoever it has to be brought back into court. That's awesome. Somebody who has to go ask tough questions, at different places, that's what you have in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
There's a lot of passion at that law firm.
Oh, yeah.
For getting to the truth.
I think that's an advantage of Dave's look too, because I'm sure that he disarms people. He doesn't look like a suit,
right.
and so I think that he could probably get people to open up and relate to him better, just because he doesn't look like a lawyer.
Well, I'll tell you this: law enforcement knows who he is.
Yeah.
I was, as a detective, very proud of the job I did. I was never afraid of private attorneys or anything like that, but I was always glad I never had a case against Dave. Yeah. It's like, oh, Godzilla's coming.
It says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The connection to Dave and USCCA law is that USCCA law basically.
Well, Dave was always one of the attorneys that
Right.
USCCA
Yes.
would employ in a self-defense shooting case, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
What's
any
is there a
self-defense
difference
case.
now?
So no, basically that just USCCA has their own law firm, and that Dave is a significant part of that.
Okay.
Okay, so it's their own law firm now.
Correct.
I gotcha. Okay, and that's that number that they would call into.
Right.
If
So that
there's-
would also be the general number. When you call that number, it's going to say, hey, if you had a incident, if you're calling to report an incident, press this number, and that automatically goes to a member of the critical response team. They pick that up on the first or second ring. It is ridiculous. Did we talk about when I heard them pick that up before?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was literally like in the washroom at headquarters, and I hear the phone go off in the stall, and I'm like, who's answering the phone? Like sitting
No
on
kidding.
the toilet, and the guy's like, hello, critical response. I'm like, that's my guy.
no kidding.
That's who I want.
Yeah. So it's almost like additional coverage, like an additional rider to what was already existed. It's just an improvement or an enhancement
Yes.
to the membership now.
Yes.
And I would imagine that first phone call in that is now covered under attorney-client
Yes,
privilege
absolutely.
could have been a crucial piece of evidence against somebody if that wasn't already covered, because I would imagine a lot of people in that situation are just they're frantic, they're spewing information,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and to now not have to worry about that being used against you when your case would come to court is pretty significant.
Yeah, in that stressful situation, when that adrenaline's going through and that auditory exclusion, tunnel vision, false memories, time distortion, all those things that people have affecting them, when they, right after that incident, people feel this overwhelming urge to talk. And, part of that critical response is like, whoa, slow down. Don't say anything. We're going to get somebody out to you right away. And that's massive to have somebody be able to do that.
That's great. That's excellent. On top of the now being covered with having the private investigator and now having the red flag. To obviously, I think a membership's a no-brainer.
Right. And, one of the other things that I think is, as far as the membership, that, and again, I can't stress how important the education and the training is, but I'll tell you this, when people are looking at a really long court case, if you're the defendant in a criminal case, that might run years.
Yeah.
People don't even think about the amount of time they're taking off work.
Right.
You're going to take off work one day a month.
And it was put in perspective at the last seminar I went to. A 1-year membership, I think, elite tier membership costs, I believe it's less than 1/2 hour of Dave's billable hour.
Right. Well, no, it's pretty close to. So his billable hours keep going up.
$750, he said.
Yeah, $750 now. Yeah, so it's close to it. If you did the annual elite, it's $599. But the interesting thing is the insurance is the same for all our levels. So even if you were at that $399 a year,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
the thing with that is you get a lot less training. It's the amount, the membership price goes up with the amount of training that you get. But what I would say is whether you're a gold or elite, you can always come to the chapter, and we meet that once a month.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm looking
That's
forward
really
to that.
good.
I'm gonna try and get there because that's next Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
So-
and like I said, we're going to be doing the plan. The great thing is, as far as the chapter, after Ken and I, like that first year, we were like, what are we going to talk about, right? After we had came up with that, then the USCCA really started like, okay, this is a good direction to go in. So they started pushing out all this different training to help us out wise, and they give us all the targets we want. We also do. I'm going to sidetrack a little bit and talk about one of the things that, as far as USCCA, when they did that, they wanted the chapters to have a charitable aspect too. So we were trying to figure out what we were going to do. They don't mandate it, but they're like, hey, you know what? If you want to, feel free. So we were trying to figure out which one we were going to do, and you're both familiar with the Lincoln. Well, I know you were, because you were there, but some Army Rangers I know didn't show up to shoot that. Leigh, I'm just kidding. No, Leigh, I know you're incredibly busy. I just wanted to,
True that.
He would have done better than I did.
Right.
Sure.
But one of our members, John Turrentine, is spent 30 years in the Army, active and reserve, and he's a member of the Lincoln Memorial Squad at Lincoln National Cemetery. And he was like, you know what? We're all volunteer. Everything that we do, we get through donations. He's like, one of our uniforms for a brand new member is about $2,000. He's like,
no kidding.
Can we do something for us? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we were kicking around the idea, and we came up with a Memorial Day shoot, 21 to 21. And basically we used a USCCA target. It's got a bunch of small targets on there, 6 of them, and then there's one circle in the head. So we said we'll shoot 3 rounds at each one of those small targets at 21 feet for a $21 donation. And I was like, this is going to be a great idea. Everybody's going to do this. But it turns out it was a really hard course of fire.
Yeah, I would have had to draw 2 of these cards.
You would have yeah, so it was, but like you said, you're in good company, because it was a little more, it sounded pretty easy when you thought about it.
Well, you hear a target, right? And so often you think of a 10-inch target or a 16-inch target. Plenty of those circles were 4-inch.
Yeah, probably a little bit less, probably like close to 3, 3.5 maybe. But yeah, so they were pretty small.
Yep.
And I've had a few people come up to me afterwards, and they're like, I really wanted to do it, but I didn't want to embarrass myself. And I'm like, nobody was going to care.
Yeah.
This was, just for a good cause. And
No, I posted mine even with my missus on there, although I did tell my wife I might go back and do it again.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I think there was one day I did it like 3 times, and I'm like, my wife's going to kill me. I'm just,
Yeah, right.
But it was fun, and
It was.
Yeah, I think we raised around $2,300,
Good.
and then we have an option to raise a little bit more for them. But if you ever want to donate to them, you can just go to their website, Abraham Lincoln Memorial Squad. Look it up. I think I probably just butchered that, but you could find that. And the great thing is,
Will there be another shoot?
So we're going to try to come up with an easier qualification for next year.
Yep.
But yeah, so we're.
Oh, well, I'll go to that one.
Yeah, we're hoping to do it again. The easier one, Like I brought a shotgun.
We're going to do the easy
Yeah,
one.
right.
Yeah. But like I said, so that was good. And then, but like I said, one of the things I'll throw in there too, just to give them kind of a plug, is that if you have the free time and that's something you want to volunteer to do, to send these veterans off with some dignity. They would love to have you. I think the average age out there is everybody's in their 70s. And here's the thing. You don't even have to be a veteran to volunteer for that. And if you could find them another bugler, I think they have one bugler that's like 80. Wow. So
We'll put that out there too.
Nice.
Any other questions over there, Leigh?
I want to know where we can send people. We should probably put this in the part we talk about it.
Yeah.
How do we get, if people want these, where do they go to get them? How much is it going to cost them?
BeyondTheTarget.net. So we do, there's 2 different versions of it, and I should have brought the ones with the tins, but so just the deck itself is $15, and then
Very reasonable.
so then we have one that's kind of like if you wanted to give it to a gift, to say it's a gun.
Hey, that's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got like a
Yes,
nice
yes.
tin. It's like $20.
Sweet.
Yeah, and then also we send everybody, and I forgot the bracelets. I'm so sorry. We have the bands, and it has the website on it. And with, I should say this, that we plan, that's just our first edition.
Okay.
So we plan on doing more, like setting them in different locations, states.
Yeah.
So that's our first one. And with each one, we do a wristband. With a different phrase on it. And this one, and I'll bring it to you guys. It says, "Be accurate. Jail food sucks." So
I like it. Yeah.
I like that
yeah.
too. Well,
Definitely go out and get these. This is a good training aid for a very reasonable amount of money. I hope you have a ton of success with this. It's pretty cool stuff.
yeah, and it just even the conversation that it could stimulate.
Yep.
Based on the different scenarios that you guys have written on here.
I've already thought of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I think it's a great additional training tool.
Thanks. We've actually used them. Some of the account executives are using them in the cert pistol trainings where we have people moving around and drawing from concealment. And then when they realize, hey, I might be pointing this at somebody else, or, these are all the things that come in. So we've been introducing the cards, some of the, account executives in there. So like you said, it's a good conversation starter, and it gets people thinking. And hopefully, it gets people training more and maybe save somebody's life someday.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Nothing bad there.
Good stuff, Carl Gray.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Like to not wait over 2 years before we get you back out here. But
Well,
again, we really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. And like I said, we're looking forward to having you guys come out to the chapter, and you'll meet a ton of great people there.
Well, thank you very much, Carl.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Carl.
Anytime.
Good seeing you again, man.
Good seeing you guys.